Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast holiday special for 2017. So today, rather than our normal format, Bert and I are going to talk about all the biggest news stories of 2017 that happened across the gaming industry, and also take a look at our most anticipated games for 2018, as there's already a long list of them. So let's start by taking a look at some of the biggest things from 2017, and the first of which is the Nintendo Switch. So the Nintendo Switch launched back in March. There were a lot of question marks coming into its launch, with Nintendo's Wii U not being a popular console, brand new Zelda game coming to both the Wii U and the Switch, and whether or not it would be any good. Things like Virtual Console and the online service, the whole portability factor, all those things that were question marks about the Switch that now, obviously, we know that it's kind of surpassed or surprised everyone, and it's become a huge hit. So Nintendo announced that it's sold 10 million units in 8 months. It's on pace to sell more units in a single year than the Wii U sold in its lifetime, which is obviously great news for fans of Nintendo alike. And we also know, of course, that Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey were both two of the most critically acclaimed games of the year, both fantastic and multiple Game of the Year awards from many publications. So we also know that third parties are lining up now due to the success of the system. Third parties are lining up to put games on the console, even games like Doom and Wolfenstein, and even some of the smaller Nintendo titles, things like Snipper Clips and ARMS, and those new franchises have sold well over 1 million units.
Yeah, it's been kind of a surprise for me as well, because I didn't really know what to expect from the Switch from a software standpoint. As we kind of know, Nintendo's biggest challenges recently have been what third parties are going to go on. And we always know that first party stuff is going to be great, but is the third party stuff are people going to start developing for it? Are they going to have the same third parties that they had before? So what a year for 2017 and Nintendo in general. I'm still surprised at how some of the games sold. You were just talking about ARMS selling over 1 million. I didn't get that game as much as everybody else did. And another one is Splatoon that we both don't get as to why so many people play it, but it's that Nintendo name, I think it is, and it's even funny thinking back at the Nintendo Wii, which started, selling like crazy at the beginning. It sold over, I think, 100 million units. But if you think about software, the software was really lacking from third party, and then it was more of a gimmick. When people started figuring that out, software just quit selling like crazy. I think I remember reading something that the average Nintendo Wii owner has like 1 or 2 games, including Wii Sports. So when the Wii U came out, you had the controller issue that people were having issues with, even though I still actually play my Wii U at least once or twice a month to kind of get out of it. But yeah, huge surprise for me. I still have a lot of questions for the Switch and is in my head as far as what's going to happen. But we both picked up a lot of games, so it was quite a year for Nintendo.
Yeah, it's been quite good. It definitely surprised me. As you know, I said I was going to wait, and I ended up buying one ahead of time. Yeah, I mean, it's just mostly promising news. There are a few things, that we've talked about that Nintendo needs to resolve. So you have Virtual Console on the Wii and Wii U, and people who bought those games on those consoles, there's no Virtual Console support on the Switch, which is really ridiculous. And then the new online service that they kind of premiered talking about early this year with the Switch, or was it even late last year? But they've delayed it multiple times now into 2018. And there's even a rumor, I believe, that just came out earlier this week that it's going to be delayed again into late 2018 rather than early 2018. So we'll see what happens there. But overall, mostly good news, I would say.
Yeah, there was also that weird news story this week that they're going to be moving to a bigger cartridge, or a little, whatever you want to call those little cartridges. That I think before they were maxed out at 32 gigs. Or actually, I think even less than that you could actually put on that card. And they're going to be releasing a 64 gigabyte card that you could use for them. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Nintendo's got such a powerhouse name that it sells just on that, and we haven't even seen like a real Pokemon game for the Switch yet or anything, as far as it not being a remaster from the previous generation. So that was, I think I even made a video of it earlier, where the remaster is going to continue to lead the way for Nintendo. And if you think really hard, 2018, there's not that many AAA games that are either first party or third party that are coming that aren't either a remaster from last generation or going to be something completely new that we don't know about. We don't know anything about Bayonetta 3's launch date. We don't know anything about Metroid Prime's launch date. Those are potentially 2019. After playing Wolfenstein 2 on Xbox One X and even seeing them on the PS4 Pro, PS4, and Xbox, I have no idea how they're going to get anywhere near the quality that was originally on those consoles on the Switch, because as much as people love Doom and picked up Doom, for me that was unplayable on the Switch. But if you hadn't played it before and you are a Nintendo person, this is your first time seeing it, you probably were blown away. I would simply say try it on one of the other consoles. It's a whole nother game. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Nintendo's Nintendo. We always kind of get confused.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's been a big year, and then we haven't even, we've talked about it at length, but the SNES Classic was a huge hit as well, and then bringing the NES back. So, good year overall for Nintendo. Talking about good years, this is the game that's all the rage, and I know you've been a little outspoken on it, but it's definitely sucked me in, and a lot of my friends as well. But PUBG. So PUBG's taken the kind of world by storm. It's probably the biggest game news story of the year. They've announced that over 30 million people have now played it across PC and Xbox. They think, based on some Steam numbers, they think 26 to 27 million of that is on Steam. We know it's sold over, 25 million copies. And then, you have those other people who have just played it on other devices or accounts. And then, to think that it's only been out less than 3 weeks now on Xbox, and it's already probably sold over 1.5 million, 2 million copies, with maybe another million more having played it through game sharing or the like, is just kind of astonishing, especially given the fact that the official release of the game on PC only happened last week, and it's still in game preview form on Xbox, of course. So it has taken the world by storm. It is hugely, hugely popular. It's all over game streaming. It's blown Twitch up. It's on Mixer, YouTube videos. It's made famous some of the streamers who play it near daily. So it's really been interesting, and I am loving it as well. I know you're a little more mixed on it, but it's definitely one of those games that's become a phenomenon. Similar in a way to Minecraft. When Minecraft first launched, it was in early access and no one really knew what it was, and then it just, obviously we know where it is today, right? So PUBG's kind of going down that same road, and it'll be interesting to see if it continues to sell the way it has so far in 2017 into 2018.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm very mixed on it, because number one, it started out really rough on Xbox from a playability standpoint, but I do understand why people love it. I mean, it's a different experience every single time. It was funny because when me and my buddy Vincent were waiting in line to see Star Wars, we were watching you on Mixer, and he's like, "Whoa, it's just one map," and it's like, "Oh, and it's just everybody versus everybody," and I mean, it was just explaining it to someone kind of is difficult without showing it to them. But funny enough, Vincent was here last night, and he played it for the first time, and that's all he wanted to do the whole night. We had 4 people over here. He was like, "Hey, let's just take turns and go into that game." And I wish I could post his testimonial about the game, but it's crazy how that game grabs people, and then people are addicted. And I completely understand it. I'm warming up to it a lot more as it's become more playable. I think I've always had that issue. It's just, it was really rough for me to play compared to all the other polished games, but when you understand that it's an early access game, it's a lot easier to absorb. But yeah, phenomenon is an understatement for this game for me.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about it is they're saying console exclusive on the Xbox, and people are still questioning if that's true. I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that Microsoft in some way has secured it on the console space, but it does seem kind of crazy to think that they would somehow not see this game end up on PlayStation 4, given the PlayStation 4's popularity worldwide, and knowing, again, how big PUBG is becoming. So it'll be interesting to see in 2018 where that goes. We know, thankfully, as you noted, the Xbox launch was rough, and we knew it was kind of going to be rough with being game preview and them saying, they kind of rushed it out in December. But they've patched it twice already. They're working on it quickly. I think Microsoft knows they have a big hit exclusive game on the Xbox, and so they're working pretty hard to get that as polished as fast as possible. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm going to be playing the hell out of it. I've been playing it near daily when I have the time, and 2018 will be interesting to see how it continues to evolve.
Yeah, well, what's your best final rank again? What was that?
Don't start.
How about this one? What was your fastest death? Like, what was your worst rank?
I know, playing with one of our favorite buddies yesterday. I want to say I was 99th or 98th. Okay. I landed and I got a fist fight with a guy, and another guy came over and killed me. So I mean, it was real quick.
Real quick, this will crack you up. So I had all my buddies here last night, and I was like, "Oh, Vincent just finished 14th on his first time from just camping the whole time." And I'm like, hey, let me try. Let me show you guys how to play. And so I land, and I'm like, hey, there's a little cliff here. I think I can just walk over the edge. Well, that edge like kept going, and I was like, he's gonna grab. His feet are gonna grab. It's not that steep, and I ended up dying 98th. I was 98th. All of them were like, Bert, you suck. Oh, God, that's weird, guys. But
the cliffs in that game, your guy like floats. You know, like they tell you never to jump down a hill because you just kind of keep going and going.
I learned that the hard way. And by the way, that's one of the things on PUBGs is you'll load in, it'll take you 5 minutes to get going, and you'll make that one mistake, but I bet you'll never make that mistake again, whatever it is you do. But yeah, it's grown on me immensely.
That's how I feel about now. Remember, I only started playing this 2 weeks ago, but that's how I feel about my 4 second place finishes right now.
Jesus.
Not too happy about it. And I've got a 3rd or 2 and a 4th and a couple 5ths. Probably about 15 to 20 top 10s, and I don't have that win yet, so it's driving me a little nuts. You know how competitive I am, so.
You need to go on that chicken diet.
All right, so kind of on the Xbox train here. So one of the other biggest kind of releases in 2017 was the Xbox One X. Microsoft, debuted the whole Project Scorpio thing in 2016. They came into 2017 with a lot of rumors and speculation, and they did the Digital Foundry kind of partnership prior to E3 to get all the specs out of the way and show that it was the powerhouse that they were touting. E3 came, the price was revealed, and many people were, we weren't. I think we were expecting the price, but which I'm kind of happy to say we had a better level of insight than I think some of the people who were saying it was going to be $399 or it couldn't compete, if it was above $399. So it launched well above expectations. Its sales were revised by many analysts because they had it at a certain number and they had to increase that. And it's been shown to be very popular. It's not only lived up to everything Microsoft has said it would be in the most powerful console and run games, at a much higher level, similar to a higher spec PC, but we're hearing the same out of developers and, the proof is in the product, right? So I have, excuse me. I've been loving mine. I know you're loving yours. We did a good video review on it. If you're looking for more information at this point in time on the Xbox One X, we have a nice long video review of it on our channel. But it's been one of my favorite consoles in a long time. Even though it's just a console refresh, I've really enjoyed it. It's a great form factor. It's a great piece of hardware, and the way it runs games without any extra effort is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think we was probably the most excited we had both been in a long time for a new console. I remember launch night, we went, put it on our Facebook page. We had pictures holding it and set up and ready to go. And thankfully, we were both 4K and HDR ready. So our TVs were simply plug and play and putting it in there. And I think we were scrambling to see which games we're going to play first and get them installed. And if we hadn't had them installed already. But yeah, I've been really happy with the Xbox One X, and I've been happy with the price point, everything. I have zero complaints on it. The only complaints I would have, which is not Microsoft's fault, but there's a few handful of games that I wish were enhanced that need to be enhanced sooner than later. So
Doom is one of them.
Prey.
Doom and Prey are probably my top 2. Yeah, I mean, I got Witcher 3 now, which is all I'll need for the next 3 years. But
you're off the grid again. After I remember the first time you were playing Witcher 3, I was like, hey, let's play Black Ops 1 or something, whatever was at that time. You're like, I'm in the middle of Witcher, man.
Yeah, I'm back in it again. I've got probably 7-8 hours since last week. Whenever the time I have to play games that's not with you guys right now, I'm on Witcher again, and all the other games have gone back to the backlog, so it's terrible. But it is what it is. So anyway, Xbox One X, yeah, we love it. I know, I speak to a lot of people within the community, and I rarely see a negative thing about it. So it seems like Microsoft has really kind of hit a high note with the X, and I know they're looking forward to carrying that into 2018 with some of the new IPs and bigger titles that we'll get to here shortly.
Yeah, I know some people have asked the question, is right now the right time to upgrade consoles, whether it's the Pro or the X, depending, and I always have the answer for them. And if you're that type of person that likes to be on the cutting edge of technology, or if you have a 4K HDR TV, it's a must if you like having that. If you're just a casual gamer, there's still enhancements that you will see and enjoy even if you don't have a 4K TV. But regardless of what you're looking for, if you're just entering Xbox, and if you have the extra scratch, buy it. There's really no reason not to. You see it in a lot of different areas, so we've been really happy with it.
Yeah, in fact, I've got one of the good buddies I play with. all the time, every week. He does not have a 4K TV right now. 1080p plasma he's still on, and he went and bought an X, and he's been impressed with it. Load times are much faster. If you're still on the OG Xbox One, the form factor is a huge difference, right? And he also noted, like, we were playing Battlefront 2 a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Oh my God, look at the detail on the outfits and the vehicles and everything." And I was like, "Yeah," and it just it compounds even further once you're on that 4K HDR setup. So still worth it, even if you're not the most advanced in your technical setup.
Yeah, and let's do something real quick. We hadn't talked about it before, but let's talk about Sony PlayStation 4 really quick, just as far as what we think happened throughout their year. So, in my opinion, I think Sony kind of had a bit of a cruise control year. I think they kind of relied a lot on their, I'd say, a handful of exclusives and kind of stayed on that. We saw the Pro, I would say, fall behind a little bit when it comes to new tech and stuff. And I feel like they are really riding on the PSVR train. So we'll see if that continues in 2018. I know we have some of the exclusives we'll talk about, but I didn't really see anything that awed me from a console perspective from the PlayStation this year, as it had in the past before the X came out and stuff. So, I mean, were you blown away this year from Sony, from anything they did outside of the Persona 5s and Neo and a few of the exclusives that they liked? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. They had the benefit of having some good first party exclusives. Horizon Zero Dawn. We'll get to some of these games, like you said, but Horizon was a big hit. It was an excellent game, one of my favorites of the year, which was a new IP, and so that made waves. And then they had the support of a lot of those Japanese company exclusives, right? So they had Persona 5 and they had Neo. They had Nier Automata. All those games kind of came out in that first quarter into the second quarter, and it really gave them that early boost. But from a hardware perspective, yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and we could probably talk longer about it. But this is the first time we've seen these mid-cycle refreshes, and Sony went first, right? They went in 2016. They didn't make a big deal out of the Pro. It kind of launched alongside PlayStation VR, and so there was kind of one eye on each, right? So when the Xbox One X comes out, Microsoft really pushes it as a new console, the best place to play, the most powerful console on the planet ever made, what have you. It really kind of overshadowed what Sony, or where Sony was with the hardware, from the hardware perspective. And I think now we're in a cycle where we're at least 2, I would say a minimum 3 years out from whenever the next consoles are going to come. So I think from a hardware perspective, Sony's kind of done. They may revise PSVR prior to the PlayStation 4's term coming to an end. But I think that Microsoft is going to ride the Xbox One X for the rest of this generation, and Sony's going to live, purely from their games, because they have that. I don't know the word I'm looking for. They have kind of the mentality across the industry, right or wrong. I don't care where you stand on it, that they are the place to play the better exclusives. And so they like to ride that pretty hard.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if developers start seeing the extra power the X has to kind of, you have a vision for your game, and you want that to turn into something bigger than what you're given from a hardware perspective, to see if they go cross-platform in the future. But that's, as you mentioned, that's another conversation. The point that I was just simply making, it was interesting for Sony. They secured those exclusives in late 2016, 2017. A lot of people forget, and a lot of people keep quoting Sony as they've always had all these exclusives, and honestly, they didn't. At the start of this generation, it was a very cross-platform environment for both consoles. A lot of it is misinformation, as we've been talking about before, but we're in a different playing field now, and I think Sony is heavily riding on those exclusives into 2018 and probably through past spring of 2018. After that, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But 2017, like I said, cruise control Sony.
Yeah. So, and either way you look at it, right? I mean, both Sony and Microsoft had very good years. Spending was up, profitability for both was up. Sony announced they had the best Black Friday that they've had since PlayStation 4 launched. Microsoft had the most spending on the console segment between the Xbox One X, S, and their software around the holidays. So I mean, it's just been good all around for both, and that's where it kind of gets funny, right? For these people that are hardcore one console or the other. It doesn't really make sense, because if we had a one console market, the industry would be worse off. It's a very good thing that we have a healthy competition between Microsoft and Sony, and we have Nintendo doing their own thing. I mean, it's proof right now with revenue being higher than ever that all three can survive, be profitable, and do well. It's not really a big deal, to have multiple like that. So moving into one of the companies that had a rough year from just a news perspective is Electronic Arts. So one of the biggest publishers, if not the biggest publisher. I don't actually know who's bigger between them or Activision. Do you know by chance? I don't know which one's bigger yeah.
It's pretty close. I mean, they're both up there.
Regardless, everyone knows Electronic Arts. They have a stigma about them, usually negative, and this year kind of showed that. So started with Mass Effect Andromeda. I can't talk about the game without laughing as much as we've talked about it this year. I did rebuy it to make you guys happy, you and Jordan happy. And in 2039, I may go back and play it. But yeah, with Andromeda bombing, as we know, the DLC for the game got canceled. It faced all the social media backlash. And the team, BioWare Montreal, has now been shifted, to working on other Electronic Arts projects. And then they moved from that and they shut down Visceral, one of our favorite franchises in gaming, one that I think us, along with many other people, was going to make a comeback this generation with either a reboot or, something to do with Dead Space. Visceral now shut down. And then obviously more recently, the whole huge controversy around Star Wars Battlefront 2's loot boxes and microtransactions, which apparently did impact sales and EA's bottom line to a degree. So much so that, there's all kinds of rumors and speculation around Disney's CEO himself having a conversation with EA CEO about it. So it's been just from not necessarily from a financial perspective, but just from a visual perspective or social perspective, Electronic Arts has faced a pretty tough year.
Yeah, talk about having a PR nightmare. I mean, but EA's had this stigma for a long time now. I mean, was it 2015 that they were the worst hated company in the world or something? I can't remember what year that was.
Yeah, it was either 14 or 15, which is ridiculous in its own right, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but it's funny, and looking at a couple things before starting the Bitcast today, I was just seeing the number of studios that EA has bought and closed down, and people that were super excited about stuff, and gosh, now to think about it, Titanfall might be going down the drain. I don't even know what to think of EA anymore. The funny thing is they still have some games that we like, and they've also killed some games that we like. So I hope 2018 is better, 2019, whatever's coming out in the near future. One of the weird things is that they have been made fully aware from a social media standpoint of things that gamers don't like, but people continue to buy them. So a lot of it's our fault as gamers. But at the same time, EA is that company that says, "Oh, we're listening to you." But they still do it, and they said that they're bringing all that stuff back anyways. They might have retooled a little bit, but that stuff's still coming. So I don't know, EA, get your crap together, dude.
Yeah, and that leads into one of the other main topics, right? Is microtransactions and loot boxes. It's been a conversation point that's been growing for the past probably couple years, but this year I feel like was the year where it really became a primary focus. Partly because of Battlefront 2. There's other titles that it just seemed loot boxes kept popping up in every single game, and I think that since we're in the early stages of loot boxes in general at a AAA game format, I think that developers and publishers have to figure out how they implement new ways to get profitability out of games while not really impacting the user base or the competitiveness of a game like happened with Battlefront 2. And it's just, I think we're in that rough period right now where they're trying to figure out the best way to do it. I think, especially after Battlefront 2, that developers and publishers alike will certainly be more cautious in their approach into how they implement games, because the sales numbers for Battlefront 2, I know, were far lower than anticipated given Battlefront 1 and the new Star Wars movie. So we'll see what happens. But it's one of those things where, it's become such a negative aspect of games that even games like, what's a good example? Maybe Forza 7, where they add crates into the game that really have no negative impact on the gameplay. You don't have to spend any real money on, but it gets a negative, as you kind of said, stigma about the game simply because they're in the game. It's really gotten to be that toxic within the gaming community. So I don't know where we go from here, but you, Jordan, and I talked about this at length in a season gaming conversation earlier this year, and we may have to go back and have a kind of an updated conversation because this has been one hell of a year for it.
Yeah, microtransactions in general for me, I'm always just kind of weird about it. I don't understand them. I've never really bought one before. I think I bought one Batman outfit in one of the Arkham games that was like, I guess considered a microtransaction, but it being a single player game, it doesn't really benefit me in any way whatsoever besides having Batman look different. But it's interesting to see how your casual gamer will still spend a lot of money on microtransactions. Because if you think about it really hard, the main people that are complaining are your hardcore gamers, your very passionate crowd that's been following a franchise or maybe been waiting for that game to release for a while. They're the only ones that are really going to say something on social media. But you got to keep in mind your hardcore gamers is not the big number of the gamers that exist out there and that actually buy games. So until those people quit buying stuff in microtransactions, I think these companies are going to continue to do it. 2017 was a crazy year for them. So I don't know. I hope they go away in some form, but I have a feeling the publishers are going to continue to try to get creative on how to do it and still get money out of people without pissing people off. But there's a lot of angry people this year when it came to microtransactions. I swear every piece of social media that I would see is people just railing on it all the time.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because a lot of it is misconstrued, right? We had people bitching about games that they never even played, which is really kind of frustrating for people like us that do play all these games and realize that a lot of people are getting it wrong. But then, in other instances like Battlefront 2 and a few other games, it can be pretty bad as well. So we've got to figure out a balance there. It's funny you mentioned about you not buying any. I think the game that I've bought the most for is your favorite game, Smite. And then, but then again, it's a different model, right? Smite's a free to play game. And I have hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game. And so, I purchase things because I like to support developers. And so they've provided me hundreds of hours of entertainment. And so I've spent some money on things within the game. But like I said, that's a free to play game. I think the conversation really gets muddy when you start talking about, the full price games, $60 games that then have people spending an extra $50, $60, $100 on things within the game. So
yeah, and I think that kind of I guess we can talk about it really quick, but games as a service, is a little different because as you're saying, free to play, and you're buying additional things for your game that you like a lot, and it's a lot different from like someone buying a collector's edition for like $150 and it comes with all this stuff, and then it's like, oh, actually, we have some more stuff that you need to buy. In terms of the microtransactions at that point, when you're spending that much for a game, you should be getting all the costumes or all the cool things, unless it's some kind of like a Halloween or a Christmas event that the game's doing or something. But game as a service, I think, is another thing that kind of took off in 2017, and that people are claiming they're not a game as a service, Destiny, but you're just a normal game that's at full price, and if not more than that, that you're still charging for stuff down the line and changing the game while it's actually evolving throughout that DLC.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't listening. I was doing a strike for the 4,000th time. No, wait, what? All right, let's go ahead and move on before we get completely off track here. So one of the biggest things we heard, and you're talking about games as a service, and one of the biggest things we heard along those lines of games as a service and microtransaction is single player games are dead. This obviously is just another stupid phrase that got passed around the industry. I don't know who starts these things or who kind of keeps them going, but I quickly, just off the top of my head in about 20 seconds, typed out as an example, just this year, we had Resident Evil 7, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, Prey, Hellblade, Persona 5, Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein 2, Assassin's Creed Origins, Evil Within 2, and Cuphead. And all, however many games I just touted off there, 10, 11 games there, are spectacular games. They're all single player. A few of them you can put hundreds of hours into. Many of those, in fact, I think we might have covered all the Game of the Year nominees right there between, Zelda and Mario and Wolfenstein 2. It's just ridiculous to hear that single player games are dead. It's not true. Hopefully it's never true because we love these experiences. And it was great to have a year where franchises that have been around for a while, like Resident Evil, Persona, Wolfenstein, Zelda, Mario, Assassin's Creed, it was great to have a year where those the new versions of those games, the sequels of those games, did so well, and then we had new IPs like Prey being kind of reborn. It really didn't have many ties to the old Prey from 2006. Horizon Zero Dawn, Cuphead lived up to expectations. So just a fantastic year for single player games, and I hope that never changes.
Yeah, to refresh memory on who said that, it's guess who? Electronic Arts. The president mentioned that single player games are going away and people don't want to play them anymore. So when I heard that, it kind of shocked me because I'm more of a single player gamer. I only play multiplayer if people are playing something and they really want to play, and it's not scheduled with people that evening or during the day. I'm usually playing a single player game, and so when I heard that comment, I was like, "What are you talking about?" But there's a lot of people, as I mentioned, the casual gamers will buy, Call of Duty or a Madden or something like that, and then that's all they play, and they go online the whole time and they repeat the same thing over and over, or Destiny or whatever the case is. So I don't know. It's interesting. 2017's best games, when you think of all the publications talking about it, every single one of the games mentioned, now that I think about it, is a single player game. I can't think of any multiplayer game that is even a nomination for Game of the Year.
No, PUBG got a few Game of the Years simply because of, like we said, the cultural phenomenon it's become. But from a Game of the Year technical perspective, its majority's been Zelda.
Yeah, because it is.
All right.
Anyways,
yeah, I think, and you touched on something there real quickly that I think is really pertinent, and that is that the gaming industry is so big now that there's room for everything. Like I was just saying about how there's plenty of room for Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch to all be profitable. The same goes for games. We have games like Destiny, like Call of Duty or Battlefield as games that people put thousands of hours into from a multiplayer perspective. But, games like Horizon and Resident Evil and Zelda and Mario are highly profitable as well and sell millions and millions of copies. There's no reason we can't have both. There's plenty of money being spent on gaming to support both. And I think it was nice to see a company like Bethesda kind of come out and almost counter EA and say, look, single player games are, what we do. They released Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein 2 and Doom. And, they do Elder Scrolls and, one of the biggest games in the world, right? And Skyrim. Hell, they're still releasing it 6 years later, which we've talked about. And Fallout. These are all single player games that are, again, they're cultural phenomenons in their own right. So there's no reason you can't have both. I think that's just a very stupid statement, especially by someone who is as high up as he is. Patrick Sutherland, I believe his name.
I can't remember the name. I just remember he was an EA president of some sort. I don't know if it was marketing or something, but yeah, I think it's another one of those executives that's just trying to sell their product and not realizing how ignorant of a statement it is. But to me, it's just kind of funny. It's like, God, man, you are so out of touch, or you're just trying to sell your product and ignoring reality. But we're used to that these days with the way the world is.
Yeah. So just a couple more things for 2017, then we'll start talking about our most anticipated 2018, and that is gaming subscription services. So things that launched in 2017 included Xbox Game Pass, which is, we've loved. It's a great service, $9.99 a month on Xbox, and you have access, I think, to around 130 games now that you can download and play just like you bought them digitally. We've talked about that in the past. Jump launched the indie game service on PC, and I had a good conversation with them a couple weeks ago, which is on the site and up on our YouTube channel. And that is a really unique service as well, with some really neat technology behind it. And if you want to learn more about that, please, I encourage you to check out my interview with Anthony Palma, who's the CEO of Jump. PS Now, excuse me. So PlayStation takes a slightly different approach, and they're more of a streaming service, but that catalog continues to expand as well for old PlayStation classics that you can play. And then Electronic Arts, going back to them, EA Access is a little different as well. It's more of a smaller service, but they announced that that's going to be coming to additional platforms in the future as well. So it seems, we're not sure if that means the Switch, which would be really interesting, or if Sony has changed their tune and they're now going to allow EA access on PlayStation 4. But either way, it's good to see that expanding. So I think over the next couple of years, and we're going to start to see this grow as well from an industry perspective. And again, Jordan, you and I had a conversation on this earlier in the year to put our thoughts there. So if you're interested in hearing more about subscription services or what we think about them, you can find that out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's streaming service is pretty good too. I usually like when I can log. Sorry, that's
I
wrong.
I didn't even catch it. I was like, "Where's he going with this? Is there something I'm unaware of?"
Oh man, I lost it there for a second. But no, it'd be interesting to know what the point I'll make on it is, we have no online service at all from Nintendo, and we probably will not get a subscription service. I know there was a rumor when the online service was talked about, they were talking about having like, what is it, an NES game or something for that month, and the second that month end, then the license for that would expire on your
Yeah,
Switch, and then you.
it was like an NES and Super NES game that you would get for the 30 days of that month that you could play as much as you want, and then the next month would have two other games. But then they came out and said that they're changing the model, whatever that means.
So I thought that was funny, considering you can get those for free if you really wanted to as ROMs anywhere. But kind of funny. But I don't know. We'll see. I do think that this model will expand. We talked about it at length in our season gaming conversations, and I think it'll change more. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And then the final point as an all up for the gaming industry is that, the gaming industry continues to grow. It is the art form that we love. Obviously that's why we do this, and it's good to see that it continues to grow. But in 2017, it looks to be the year, and the numbers aren't final yet. We won't know yet, but it looks to be the year that it's going to surpass $100 billion in worldwide revenue for the gaming industry. And that is just astounding. To put that in perspective, I looked this up. There's the box office worldwide revenue in 2016, and growth was flat in 2017, is 40 billion, around 40 billion, 39 to 40 billion. So it just goes to show you how big video games have gotten worldwide and how much people are spending on them. It's becoming the biggest industry, or if it's not the biggest kind of entertainment industry, and it just continues to grow. So I think in terms of, all these things we were talking about around single player games and games as a service and microtransactions and all these things, I think gaming is just going to continue to grow, and consoles are going to be bigger. Games are going to be bigger. There's going to be more selection. And the infamous word that we talk about all the time with the backlog, I don't think we are ever going to catch up, because there's just not enough time to play the amount of games that come out nowadays. So really you kind of have to pick and choose and just play what you love, because the industry is just going to continue to expand.
Yeah, and I think the industry has changed so much. I remember when we were kids, gaming was like the reason for violence and all the stuff that was happening in the 80s and 90s. And there's still that stereotype of, you're a gamer, so you immediately have, 2-inch thick glasses, and, you have a lisp, and you don't have any friends, etc. I mean, there's all these issues. Yeah. Just you're pretty much a dork is pretty much it. And jeez. So I think being, I guess, a geek is what people call them, is slowly going away. I think video games is turning into just another hobby that people have. There's definitely going to be extremes in any hobby, but it's fun that it's no longer in that little stereotype of what it used to be. And I can't even tell you the stuff that we probably grew up with. Everybody thinking that we're some kind of a loser or something because we game. But now it's bigger than almost everything: music, movies, everything, and people are loving it. So it's good to see.
Yeah, it's really neat to see. Yeah, and I think it's neat that we're at an age where we witness this firsthand, right? Because we grew up with the Atari 2600, and back when the industry was next to nothing, and saw when the NES released, and kind of saw Super Mario Brothers for the first time and what that meant to us, and all those experiences I look back on now, which are now over 30 years old. But it's neat to say that we've been there for the majority of it, which is pretty cool.
Really quick on that, when you mentioned that, what I find funny is the younger folk these days, someone that's, let's throw a number out there, 15, 16, 17 years old, that considers themselves a retro gamer, and that's all they play. And so they're playing like NES or Super Nintendo, and to me that's just kind of funny, because that's what we just kind of grew up on it, and that was that. But I guess it's the same as like a 15, 16-year-old that listens to CDs or something. It's and nothing else. But it just cracks me up. That's all. Short topic, nothing else.
No, it's funny. And I agree, because hearing that, right? Someone's like, "Oh, I played the Super Nintendo," as if it's it is a classic now. But I remember when it came out, and I was blown away, right? Seeing Super Mario World, and just being like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." But to your point, I saw someone on Reddit, this was a little while ago now, but they were trying to make a point about them being an old school gamer. and he said, "I've been gaming since the
I know what you're talking
PlayStation
about.
1."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I thought he was making a joke about he's a younger gamer. He was actually trying to make the point that he's been gaming a long time. And I'm like, is this guy serious right now? But yeah, if you started on the PlayStation 1, hey, more power to you. But you're not a classic gamer. I'm sorry. It
I
doesn't
think my
work like that.
first gaming console that I played, I think actually I've got the Atari 7800 over there, but the 2600, and then I really got into games. Funny enough, it was Oregon Trail and the Apple IIe in elementary school.
That's
That
all of
really,
us, all of us at our age.
yeah, you died of dysentery or whatever. So
I could never cross a goddamn river. You die every goddamn time.
you just got that up, down, left, right arrow. That's all you could. Anyways,
all right. So that's 2017 at a glance. It's been an interesting year for games. A lot of good things happened. Mostly good things, I would say. Really, we got 2 new consoles. We got a ton of amazing software. In fact, I was having this debate the other day, and again, I don't think we want to get into it because we're going to go off track here. But is 2017 the year where we finally topped 2007 for the best game year? And you know what? Maybe we'll do a topic on that here in one of our future Bitcasts because we need to spend some time on that. But to give you an idea of 2007 was the year that BioShock, Halo 3, Mass Effect, Portal, Assassin's Creed, all of those came out within like a 4-month span. So, you look at 2017 and you think, God, has any year ever been this good with games? And 2007 kind of has held that title for the past decade. So we'll talk about that in a future Bitcast. But
yeah, a couple others just to tease you with our awesome topic in the future is Modern Warfare came out that year too. Did you mention Uncharted?
Uncharted, another one. Yep.
And then people's arguably favorite Mario until Odyssey came out, but Mario Galaxy.
Yeah.
And that was, people gave that like a 10 in reviews. God of War 2. So I don't know. There was just so many big games in 2007. So yeah, I in my opinion, I think this is the best year in gaming as far as overall content that's, AAA from a review standpoint. I mean, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, we'll have to go back and revisit that. So we'll